6:44 now, a weather authority alert day issued for tomorrow. This is a live look at Tampa right now. Calm, but not for much longer. At least 15 counties under evacuation orders right now.
Hurricane Helene made its way through Mexico, causing major flooding in some areas. Now Helene expected to strengthen throughout the day, as Parker's been telling you, when it will likely bring life-threatening storm surge to Florida's coastline. One of the biggest concerns always is the power outages, as Helene is expected to bring strong winds that threaten to topple trees and, of course, down power lines. This will be the third hurricane to hit this area of Florida in just over a year.
Scared. This one here is going to be our turn, I think. We got to be more ready this time than we've ever been before. May take us a little bit of time to put everything back together, but we're resilient. We'll come right back. That's what we've done for years.
So look at this picture. This just some of the 21,000 linemen and power crews all on standby in the Florida Panhandle, ready to respond to outages as soon as the worst of the storm passes. The Florida governor says they are working on bringing in even more.
That is literally an army of power people there getting ready to go. Parker Beasley is, of course, tracking the latest this morning. Parker, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so this is expected to become the third major hurricane to make landfall in the Big Bend region of Florida and along the panhandle of Florida in the last 6 years. Prior to 2018 Hurricane Michael, Category 5, we all remember that storm, the third most intense storm to ever impact the United States. That was the first major hurricane that the Panhandle had ever seen. We dealt with Idalia last year, and now we're dealing with Helene. So some unanticipated history being written here within the last couple of years. Now let's transition to talk about local weather impacts as of this morning. We are talking about low pressure just to our west, bringing in some really heavy, significant rainfall, so much so that we're dealing with flash flood warnings for parts of Bland, with Grayson, Carroll, even getting into parts of Pulaski counties and Giles counties this morning until 12:30, because we're going to continue to deal with this streamline flow out of the south throughout the majority of our Thursday, bringing in some really, really heavy rain. We see 9 a.m. still dealing with that. 10, 11 is when it finally starts to settle down. But the majority of us are going to be staying mostly cloudy, mild and muggy with that light mist to drizzle all day long. And then once we get into the late afternoon, we'll start to see the potential for a couple of storms to get booming, similar to what we saw yesterday and on our Tuesday. Now, your 10 to 10 forecast for today, go ahead, grab that rain gear, keep it handy. We're going to stay in the low to mid 70s. Some of us get close to 80 degrees, like parts of South Side, which won't see that much rain for the day. But otherwise, going to be mostly cloudy across all of our backyards for our Thursday. Latest advisory on Hurricane Helene came out about an hour and 45 minutes ago. Winds continue to increase, pressure continues to decrease. That means the storm is strengthening, expected to make a landfall between Apalachicola and now just west or just east of St. Mark's into parts of Taylor County along the Big Bend of Florida. I've spent a lot of time on some of those beaches down there, so my heart goes out to those communities, hopefully taking preparations very, very seriously, because they are going to be dealing with hurricane force winds upwards of 75 miles per hour, potentially 115, 120, 125, 130, with gusts close to 140 at times just prior and just after landfall. Now, we also are talking about tropical storm force winds that encompass the entire state of Florida. So I've got family on the East Coast. Yes, they're going to be seeing the impacts from Helene as well. So just because we're seeing the cone here doesn't mean the swath of impacts is negated to that small area of the cone. It's actually much larger than that. There's also a pretty large tornado potential for the majority of the peninsula of Florida, both today and tonight, with that threat extending further and further north as the storm continues to push off towards the north. So as we have a look at futurecasts, this is what it looks like right now on radar. We're starting to see an eye wall out there, which is not good. That means the storm is intensifying. Once we get to about 4 p.m. this afternoon, notice the onshore flow into the Bradenton, Tampa, Sarasota, Cape Coral area. That's where the storm surge becomes prominent. It's also starting to push water away from the Big Bend of Florida, and then it starts to pile in that water from the backside. We're also noticing a very concentric ring here. So we're seeing the conservation of angular momentum, which is sort of like a figure skater. When you bring in your arms, you rotate quicker. When your arms are extended, you are rotating slower. So the stronger this storm gets, the more concentric the eye wall gets, the stronger the winds on the north and eastern side. Again, with forward momentum moving off towards the north, you can add about 15 to 20 miles per hour on top of those winds that are expected at the time of landfall. Now, by 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, around this time, we're going to be starting to see the impacts of Helene, bringing us some heavy rain, some gusty winds, and the potential for some tornadoes, as we're going to be dealing with some isolated single-cell storms that are rotating at times. Once we get into Saturday, things start to clear up, but we are expecting the heaviest of rainfall to be in and around parts of the southern Appalachian Mountains, as well as the Blue Ridge to our west and parts of the New River Valley. And then that tornado threat also extends well east from Virginia Beach all the way to Bristol for our neck of the woods. And we're going to continue to see this rain linger for the next 5 to 6 days or so.